evening, and welcome back to the Signal Live. I'm Monique Presley.
I'm Dr. Zachary Kirk, the Zactivist. And look, before we get into all the heavy stuff tonight, Monique, can we just acknowledge that we're out here doing a whole new show while the government can't even keep the lights on?
Zach, you're not wrong. We're more consistent than Congress at this point, and frankly, who isn't?
Right. We show up every week on time with the plan. Meanwhile, they can't even pass a budget without turning it into a reality show.
Listen, speaking of reality shows, tonight we're covering a city under attack, a government that shut down, and an economy that's got Black folks out here trying to figure out how to stack coins while dodging federal troops. So yes, indeed, it is giving reality and show as well as chaos.
It really is. Look, but here's what we're not going to do. See, we're not going to sit here and just complain. See, on this show, we're going to break it down, build us up, and make sure we leave here tonight with something that we can all actually use.
That's right. We're starting tonight with Chicago, a city under siege, federal forces in the streets, violent confrontations, a takeover that should terrify every American who believes in democracy.
Then we're looking back to look forward. South Africa under apartheid, the brutal apartheid state repression met with powerful, organized resistance. See, history has lessons for us right now. It's a blueprint. It's a warning. And to be honest with you, Monique, it's a guide for this moment.
That's right. We're also going deep down on the government shutdown, not the political games, but the real human costs. Has anybody forgot there are real humans involved? Who's suffering? Who's profiting? And where does this end?
And baby, then we're going to close with something that you need. Financial, not you, Monique, but like our viewers. Financial stability. And baby, all of us. Financial stability in unstable times. Practical strategies to protect yourself and your family when the ground keeps shifting. Because look, they shut down the government, but they can't shut down our ability to take care of each other in community.
But before we get started, Zach and everyone out there, there's some breaking news out of the Department of Justice. New York Attorney General Letitia James, the same AG who put Trump on trial, has officially been indicted on charges of fraud, though she corrected the real estate records in question years ago. Let's be clear. This is nothing more than the revenge and utter disrespect of a small and bitter man who occupies the White House. He called AG James scum, deranged, and a disaster, and he promised to go after his political enemies. He just a few weeks ago said that he hates his opponents. When people show you who they are, believe them. Let's hear Attorney General James's response.
This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. He is forcing federal law enforcement agencies to do his bidding, all because I did my job as the New York State Attorney General. These charges are baseless, and the president's own public statements make clear that his only goal is political retribution at any cost. The president's actions are a grave violation of our constitutional order and have drawn sharp criticism from members of both parties. His decision to fire a United States attorney who refused to bring charges against me and replace them with someone who is blindly loyal not to the law, but to the president, is antithetical to the bedrock principles of our country. This is the time for leaders on both sides of the aisle to speak out against this blatant perversion of our system of justice. I stand strongly behind my office's litigation against the Trump Organization. We conducted a 2-year investigation based on the facts and evidence, not politics. Judges have upheld the trial court's finding that Donald Trump, his company, and his 2 sons are liable for fraud. I'm a proud woman of faith, and I know that faith and fear cannot share the same space. And so today, I'm not fearful. I'm fearless. And as my faith teaches me, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. We will fight these baseless charges aggressively, and my office will continue to fiercely protect New Yorkers and their rights. And I will continue to do my job.
Monique, this is a direct attack on Black people. Like, I'm looking online and I'm seeing kind of what people are saying. This is an American nightmare. Attorney James, we the people, we stand with you and we're here for you. And that's the whole entire point of what we're doing tonight and why we have this program. People, this is The Signal Live.
There was a Black Hawk helicopter with American federal agents repelled on the roof of an apartment building that houses families. And in those families, they have children. And those children were zip tied at 1 o'clock in the morning and lined up. And then they were separated, according to statements from witnesses, into two different groups, a Black group and a brown group. Donald Trump and his alphabet boys are not welcome in our city. Not at all. Not at all. They are not welcome to choke out Black men on the expressway. They are not welcome to pick up parents and detain them after they drop their children off at our schools. They are not welcome in our neighborhoods to terrorize, to ask for papers. This ain't the American South, and we ain't under Black codes anymore. Our union is in solidarity with every parent in this city who understands the promise of safety and democracy. This union is in solidarity with every student, every young person in this city who deserves our safety, our love, our compassion, our understanding. We will do everything possible to ensure that sanctuary is inside of this school, to make sure that we have safety teams all across this city. We keep us safe. Yes, yes.
That was Chicago Teachers Union President Stacey Davis Gates, making it clear that not only is Chicago under siege, it refuses to go quietly. President Trump has authorized 300 National Guard troops to deploy to Chicago over the objections of the governor, the mayor, and the people. The administration claims they're targeting criminals, but U.S. citizens, including children, have been detained in a city that's been turned into a war zone. And here's the truth, people. Chicago's crime rate is down. Murders down 29%. Overall crime down 13%, but Trump needs chaos to justify this takeover. To help us understand this moment and how we win, we have two extraordinary faith leaders joining us. The Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III, Senior Pastor of Trinity United Church of Christ, and Reverend Sierra Bates Chamberlain, Executive Director of Live Free Illinois. Welcome, welcome, welcome to you both.
Thank you.
I'm so glad to have you both here and that you have taken the time to be with us, because I know for sure that you are busy, and I want you to know, to both of you, we've been praying. Reverend Moss, your city has been through so much terror, and yet the administration calls protesters, quote, domestic terrorists, unquote. But it's federal agents who are doing the firing of tear gas. They're the ones shooting at protesters and creating violence. When the government treats Black neighborhoods like enemy territory, what does that tell us? And what are your thoughts in this hour?
Well, I like to say it this way. Again, thank you for having both of us on here. I like to say it this way, that the Civil War never ended. There was only a ceasefire. We are continuing. We were in a Cold War during this when the Civil War declared that it was a ceasefire. And now we are returning with people in office who are Confederate fanboys and are antebellum apologists. We are witnessing, one, the demonization of Black and brown. And we're also witnessing the dehumanization of our families and our children. And we are witnessing this in Chicago at a major level. As was stated by Stacey Gates, we've witnessed in South Shore an entire apartment building. I want to make sure that people understand this. An entire apartment building, primarily of families and a lot of seniors. At 1 a.m. in the morning, all of a sudden, they had 300 agents zip tie and break down every single door, detain them without a warrant, and currently, just recently, breaking news that a judge stated that they have found that about 200 of these detainees were never shown a warrant. We are seeing this continually in Chicago, that there is a lawlessness from the government that is operating, that they are setting the stage for bringing in not only federal troops, but in other cities of what is called martial law in reference to this
Absolutely.
Insurrection Act.
Absolutely, and it does appear that that is the goal. Reverend Bates Chamberlain, the administration regained this power through divide and conquer propaganda. They tore us apart and sold us lies, and this is no different. In Chicago, immigrant enforcement is being used to militarize our communities and divide us. In your opinion and your expertise, how do we resist that?
The only way that we can resist in this moment is through organizing and ensuring that we're educating our people. So in Chicago, we have been working not only with community groups, but the faith community has come together in a beautiful way. We have organized the Faith Over Fear table, which is a multi-faith table, working across Chicago, working across the Chicago land. Many people have come together, showing up, whether it's been at Broadview, whether it's been in the city, and Waukegan. People are standing up and speaking out. There literally been pastors putting their bodies on the line. There's one of our colleagues a few weeks ago. He was shot with exploding pellets. So they've been tear gassed, but faith leaders are organizing and the communities are resisting. The other piece that we are doing, we are making sure that we are educating folks not only on Know Your Rights trainings, but also on the long-term impact, because we understand that the lie of coming in because of immigration and gun violence was only that's a small piece of his long-term strategy, which is to execute Project 2025 and attempt to put this country under an authoritarian rule. So we're making sure that we are educating our people on the long-term strategy, as well as ensuring that we're equipping people to be prepared for the midterms.
Well, Reverend Moss, we were just hearing what some are doing, what faith leaders are doing, and how they're answering the call in this hour. Let's talk about that protection. Trinity has a history of sanctuary and resistance. In every city under siege, what that hasn't already been mentioned should our houses of worship be doing to meet this moment?
One, our houses of worship have to be spaces of education and empowerment. From the pulpit, from lay leaders, they have to be able to share information. One of the things that we did is we passed out information to say, if you are detained, this is what you are to do. If you see someone from ICE, here is what you are to do. Here is who you should call. From the ACLU to the National Immigration Organization in reference to immigrant rights. And we have also, as a church, been supporting the Legal Defense Fund, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. We have been sharing every single Sunday. I do a 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes and I will share information to you. The puppets, I should say, the puppet masters behind the throne of Trump, from Peter Thiel and Palantir to how Bezos is functioning, to even the ideology of the South African mafia, as some call it, of individuals who are now trying to wreck democracy with a peculiar ideology that focuses on an idolatry of white supremacy.
Well, Dr. Moss, I think there needs to be a whole training, and I'm volunteering you for it, sir, to teach churches how they can do this work and not be in jeopardy or be so worried about losing their tax exempt status. But that's another question for another day, but it's one that needs to be answered. Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III and Reverend Sierra Bates Chamberlain, thank you for your courage. Thank you for your leadership. This is what resistance looks like. This is what faith looks like. Faith leaders, educators, organizers, refusing to let our people be terrorized and refusing to let them be alone. You can support Trinity United Church of Christ and Live Free Illinois on our actions and resources page on stateoftheppl.com TV. When we come back, lessons learned from South Africa. What can their struggle against apartheid teach us about this moment? Stay with us.
Somewhere there's a child crying. Somewhere there's a child crying. Somewhere there's a child crying, crying for freedom in South Africa. Somewhere.
I come from a country where for the last 35 years, millions of South Africans have been suffering under a system called apartheid. Apartheid is a cancer on the body politic of the world, a scourge on our society and on all humankind. Apartheid exists only because of economic greed and political oppression maintained by both systemic and physical violence and a false sense of racial superiority. So many have been forced into exile. So many have been thrown into jail. Too many of our children have been shot down mercilessly on the streets of our nation.
For freedom in South Africa.
A concept from the Akan people of Ghana, Sankofa means go back and get it. At the Signal Live, we know to look to our history to recover wisdom in order to move forward into the future. Sankofa is not about nostalgia, it's about power. And that brief clip from the PBS documentary, Have You Heard from Johannesburg, is all about power. We personally may not have been here before, but our elders and our ancestors have. From 1959 to the early 1930s, the anti-apartheid movement animated freedom work across the globe. Students built shantytowns on college campuses, consumers boycotted South African products, and everyday people organized their dollars as a weapon for justice. The apartheid movement didn't just use police and military power to crush dissent. They used jobs, wages, and access to survival as weapons. Sound familiar? Because when we look at what's happening today in cities like Washington, Chicago, and Portland, we're policed and pushed into poverty. That's how economic pressure and state power move together. But the anti-apartheid movement teaches us that moral clarity can survive scarcity, even when people's jobs, pay, and safety were threatened. Strategy and solidarity became their survival plan. To help us think more deeply about how these lessons connect to the present, we're joined by the brilliant Dr. Ron Daniels, founder of the Institute of the Black World 21st Century, who was there in the movement, holding it down for the diaspora. Dr. Daniels, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and being with us tonight.
Well, it's great to be on with you and to this very exciting exchange of ideas. In fact, this is a part of how the resistance manifested itself in the 60s and the 70s, when people began to rise up and speak truth to power. Reverend Jesse Jackson observed his 84th birthday yesterday, and a part of the process in the anti-apartheid movement was to keep hope alive. Hopeless people are people who do not struggle. People who have hope do struggle. And so in South Africa, you know, there came a time when people just simply said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Enough is enough. Spearheaded really almost in the same way that the civil rights movement was spearheaded in this country by young people. The Sharpsville massacre that took place, the Soweto uprising, in which basically, young people went to their parents and said, look, don't worry about us. We know you're concerned, but we have to go confront this monster. We have to go confront this evil. And fortunately in South Africa, just as in the United States, you had leaders like Alan Bosak, like Bishop Tutu, but more important than anyone else, the image and symbol of Nelson Mandela that resonated all over the world. So synergistically, one of the greatest movements that we've seen in this era was the way in which the power of a Nelson Mandela, and it was in the instrument, by the way, an era of Black consciousness and Black power. So we cannot forget also the Black consciousness movement that was spearheaded, but exploding in South Africa, and the role of artists, like Miriam Makeba and others who were a part of it. And then on this side, I will never forget just how pervasive it was as students rallied on their college campuses first and said, you will not invest in South Africa, and put their bodies on the line in that regard. And then went to city councils across this country and did likewise. And then at the end of the day, like then and like now, and I've been talking about this, is the urgent need for a cultural, spiritual, political offensive, that which galvanizes the people so they are fearless and willing to face death if necessary, but more than anything else, to lock arms, to in fact, in most instances, non-violently.
Yeah, now Dr. Daniels, we ain't finna die. Dr. Daniels, we ain't finna die. Let me tell you what we are finna do is we are going to lock arms, and we are going to survive this and thrive through this. And history shows us, Dr. Daniels, that people don't wait for rescue, which echoes back to the wise words you just gave us. Even under apartheid, communities built their own economic lifelines, mutual aid funds, church networks, credit unions, cooperatives. What lessons should today's organizers draw from that example?
Well, I think you basically stated, that is, we do have to lock arms and we have to create these methodologies and at the end of the day have the ability to collectively act. So we had people willing to say, we're not going to drink that Budweiser beer. We're not going to, in fact, do South African lobster tail. Or I remember one of the phrases was Coca-Cola was involved. We had a slogan that said, Coke sweetens apartheid. Was one of the phrases. So you have to have that kind of spirit. And what I'm hoping is erupting in this, in the United States at this moment, is that similar kind of resistance, which, by the way, also needs to be connected, because at this point we need a united front and different people. I mean, everybody was not in necessarily all of the same camps in South Africa. There were people in different, but really under the umbrella largely of the ANC, there was a united front, and we need a similar united front for mass activity in this country, and it's beginning to develop. And we have leaders like the ones you just had. It's interesting. I just had a conversation with Reverend Sarah in Chicago yesterday and sat along with a group of young leaders about that. They are rising up. And a part of that, to me, is also to be in communion with our ancestors. Reverend Mark is going to be on soon, and going to Selma every year. I've gone to Selma over and over again, knowing the history of how we got to be where we are today. Even though, we have those lapses, this ebb and flow of history. So we're at the most dangerous moment that I'm aware of for democracy. And it's like Vernon Jordan once said, if white America gets a cold, we get pneumonia. So if democracy is in change, then Black America is in serious trouble. But here's what I firmly believe in terms of faith, that the rejected stones, those who, as Reverend Jesse Jackson once said, who pick cotton can pick presidents. I believe that in a very interesting kind of way, the Ma'at people, the people who believe in righteousness and justice, those who have been denied, the rejected stones, I see as the cornerstone of saving ourselves, but also saving America in terms of the prospect of a more perfect union. It is ironic. It is righteous irony that we are going to be the ones who are going to lock arms and save a nation that has committed so many atrocities, so many crimes, and yet there are good people who can lock arms and in fact move forward in a very concerted way.
We are the good people, Dr. Daniels. We are the good people, and we're committed to the work, and we're here fighting every single day. But like, let's be honest. There are some people, even within our community, who are waiting for someone else to lead them towards freedom. What is one brief piece of advice for everyday people that you can give about the importance of all of us practicing the courage that this moment really does require of us?
Well, it's like Abel Mabel Thomas said it better than anybody else I know. We are the leaders we've been looking for. And the fact that, it is the courageous acts of individuals. Sometimes it takes just one individual taking a courageous stand. I remember the image of that one singular person stopping a tank in the Tiananmen Square massacre, that one person. So we all have that capacity, though I must say that there's a certain security, there's a certain kind of comfort when we're doing it together collectively. But we should not wait. We should act in different ways in our communities, in our churches, and our civic organizations, because right now the tools we have at our disposals are boycotts, ballots, and civil disobedience, and massive civil disobedience, because we can, in the right spirit, once we decide to lock on, we can, as they did in South Africa, and even if they're doing it here, we can fill up the jails. We can bring this country to a halt. But we got to have our spirit right, have our minds right, have our culture
right.
And we're going to get there.
And we are going to get there. Yeah. Looking to our leaders, looking to our elders, and looking to our ancestors to guide us, we are going to get there. And that is Sankofa now. Learning from the resistance of our past to understand the power of our present. When systems tighten control, we strengthen our community. Thank you, Dr. Daniels, for your example and your wisdom and being willing to share that with us tonight. We need as much as we can get, Now, you can find more information about the South African Institute Liberation Movement and ways to support mutual aid networks right now at stateoftheppl.com/TV. Just click actions and resources, because that's what this is about. It's not just a program. It's also about resources for our community to empower us to do the work. When we come back, a deeper look at the government shutdown and what it's really costing our communities with some very special guests. But first, a word from our friends at Woke Vote. Stay with us.
He's not going to save me from hell. Jesus did that. I said Jesus did that.
When I think about the space that we built, the moments that we built in North Carolina, the first thing that comes to mind is beloved community.
We are going to have to be so committed to each other that we are willing to do the work that nobody else will do. Nobody else is going to come and save us. Nobody.
Our job was to bring them into a consciousness of the moment.
There was a black man who many considered to be dead. 2 black women went to Jesus and said, "Your friend is dead, he's dying." And Jesus said, "He's just asleep." But everyone considered him to be dead. Sometimes that's our people. When we don't vote, we have to awake a sleeping people, don't we?
Personally, I don't want to live my life always in defense. I don't want to live my life always in resistance. I want to live it in freedom, which to me is existence. And freedom to me looks so much like not being in a fight.
I want them to see themselves. I want them to see the power that they already had. I want them to see the beauty, how beautiful they already were. I want them to see how many opportunities came from them connecting and building together. I want them to feel that they can do whatever it is that they need to do to change the material conditions of their community. And, I think you encapsulate all of that in, beloved community. Like, that's all of those things.
We are now days into a shutdown with no clear end in sight. Over 800,000 federal employees have been furloughed, told to stay home with no pay. Others, TSA officers, air traffic controllers, food inspectors, are still being forced to work for free to keep the country moving. Airports are reporting delays and safety concerns as controllers burn out. Courtrooms are going dark. Families who depend on federal paychecks are rationing groceries and skipping bills. This is not the first time workers have been used as bargaining chips. Shutdowns don't just bruise paychecks. They break trust, push families into debt, and this time may just be the cover Trump needs for his authoritarian rule. But we know something else too. Solidarity works. Federal workers have marched, organized, told their stories, and forced change before. And tonight, their fight is our fight. Because if this can happen to them, it can happen to anyone. To help us understand what's at stake and what must be done, I'm joined by former Congressional Black Caucus Chair, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty of Ohio's 3rd District, Congresswoman Lauren Underwood of Illinois' 14th District, and Everett Kelly, National President of the American Federation of Government Employees. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome and thank you, Monique.
President Kelly, some of the processes impacted by the federal shutdown are automated. So pockets of America have yet to feel the heat or the pain. Help us understand the depth of impact this shutdown is having on government workers and their communities.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me, and glad to be a part of this panel and look forward to the discussion. But this shutdown, is, to be honest, is unlike anything that we've seen before. We've seen shutdown before, but nothing like this. And the American people have not yet began to feel the crust of what's about to happen. Before long, you will see a delay in the ability to process veterans claims, Social Security claims. You will see a delay in the services that the federal workforce provide for the American people, such as, even when you go into some of the museums or zoos or what have you, you're going to see this massively, affect the American people. Things that they're used to receiving, benefits that they're used to receiving, are going to go by the wayside. They haven't begun to see the pressures yet. But the government, the federal employees rather, provide these services for the American people. And you'll see that very soon. You already seen it, in the airline industry when you are traveling. The TSA agents, working day and night trying to provide a way for people to travel, but the lines are going to get longer and longer and longer. Wait time are going to become astronomical. So we have these type of things to look forward to as a result of this shutdown.
Congresswoman Beatty, we've seen shutdowns before. I know that you've been through them before and been part of negotiations to end them before, but this one feels different. The current occupant of the White House, the president, has stated that federal workers may not receive back pay, even though we know that's unlawful. and that he'll use this to fire even more people. Is he using this shutdown to consolidate power, or can you help us understand what all of this means?
Well, first of all, let me say thank you for having us on and joining my two good friends. You're right on target. This president, as we've heard repeatedly, is weaponizing our government. He's a bully. He's incompetent, but he's throwing out all of these things to hopefully bait us. As you know, we're in the 7th round today, and the Senate held strong because this is about healthcare. Healthcare is also about our economy. It's about keeping people whole, whether that is well, whether that's allowing them to survive. And here's what happened, as you'll recall, during COVID, when we created those tax credits in the ACA, they are now expiring. And Republicans knew they were expiring. We know that we're at a point that we're talking about 20 million people can be affected. Some of these premiums can go up as high as 75%. So what we're saying is no health care, no vote. Now, polling is on our side. And Monique, this is something you and Kirk will really understand, because you've done a great job in your own role with this new show, getting the message out that Democrats need to stand for something. Democrats need to have a message. Democrats need to fight. And let me tell you, Lauren Underwood, who is one of our highest on our Democratic policies and communications committee, has provided all kinds of avenues, and it's working. Polling will show that the American people are saying, thank you for fighting for us. Thank you for standing up. That's on traditional and non-traditional media that Lauren has us on with influencers. So I can tell you our message is working, and we can't give up. Because now Republicans, I never thought I would agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene on anything. Even she is saying the president is wrong. Republicans are now saying, hey, if this keeps going, I'm going to start standing with the Democrats. And that's because we're at our very best. Hakeem Jeffries, our leader, has been on point. He has galvanized the members, because we know while you can target the messenger, you can't silence the truth.
That's right. And even when you talk about MTG, when pain meets your front door, when it's your child, it starts feeling different. So you start talking different. But then there are those who are untouched by normal human concerns. And that brings us to another way it seems like the current occupant of the White House is trying to consolidate power by going after his political enemies. Trump crossed a bright red line today when he charged New York State's Attorney General Letitia James, my Howard Law Bison sister. Your thoughts, Congresswoman Beatty?
Well, here's the thing. I'm so proud of her. She stood tall. She believes in her faith. Come on. This was just rigged to go after her, because she spoke up and she was victorious and she was unafraid, and she's protecting the rule of law, the Constitution. She is brilliant. We stand with her, because here's the thing. On that application, she said that she was not going to live in this home. And so he's on a witch hunt. And that's just what this is. It's the same thing with Comey. We watched what's happening in the trials today, and no prosecutor that is worth their salt, their intellect, will take this on, because it's frivolous and it's a sham. And it's all because he's really afraid of what she has exposed and how she has stood her ground. She joined other attorney generals across the state to be victorious with us on so many things that's against Donald Trump and his henchmen.
That's right. That's right. And these attorney generals really have been the front line, have been like the final line in between us and full authoritarianism. So we appreciate them, and I'm glad that you all are supporting her. Congresswoman Underwood, is he going to be successful with these things that he's trying to do? Will he be able to advance authoritarian power with this shutdown? I heard you talking recently I attended a session of yours where you had some real clear thoughts about what we needed to do in order to get power back within these next few months. What can you tell us?
Well, what I can tell you is that it's clear Donald Trump believes he's above the law. And they no longer believe in the fundamental rights as outlined in the United States Constitution, specifically the Bill of Rights, those first 10 amendments, freedom of speech, due process, speedy and fair trial, all of that stuff. You hear cabinet secretary after cabinet secretary, the vice president to the president himself saying that they don't think that those fundamental rights apply to the American people. So what I encourage folks to do is get a physical copy of the Constitution, read it for yourself, and be ready to prove your citizenship. Because in states like mine, where ICE is deployed and they are snatching people up off the streets, just today we got some good news that the National Guard has been turned around. I mean, if they're doing it here, they can come to your neighborhood too. And we need to be ready to protect ourselves and those who are most vulnerable in our lives. And I think that there's a little bit of work to do in Black America to have our documents in order to make sure that we can prove our citizenship.
Well, thank you to all of you for everything that you do to stand on the line and to work and serve our country and to serve all of us. We need you now more than ever. We appreciate you. Thank you for joining the Signal Live.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
When we come back, financial stability in times of instability, the practical strategies you need to protect yourself and your family when everything feels uncertain. Stay with us.
I just have to say, I'm pissed. We fly to Washington, D.C. every week to fight for constituents, to fight for those that we know and those that we don't know. And so many of us come, especially those from the Black Caucus, who are doing all that we can and are giving of our heart and our spirit to try to make this country as good as we know it can be. And so this is really distressing and disturbing that these people who tell us that they don't care about our constituents, they don't care about the Constitution, they don't care about the country, and they have the votes to keep the government open. They actually have the votes and the tools to make sure that people have health care, a basic need. And that they would be willing to shut this all down. It boggles my mind and it makes me so angry.
Monique, I know it's not 2013 anymore. And I know this ain't New York City. But let me tell you one thing I know for sure. I know that the rent is too damn high.
You are right. The rent is too damn high.
Rent is too damn high. What? People working 8 hours a day, 4 hours a week, and a third job. What you gonna do with a lot of rent? Mothers can barely afford to feed their children breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If rent ain't too high in your state, something is high somewhere. Come and run with me. Rent is too damn high. I say the rent is too damn high. I'm Jimmy McMillan.
Monique, can we get Jimmy to be president at some point?
No, Zach.
Look, Black unemployment jumped from 6.2% to 7.5% in 2025, the highest level since October of 2021. Black home ownership has dropped to its lowest level since 2021. These aren't just statistics, they're signals, like the signal out, signals. So tonight we're asking if we're shut down and also we're shut out, then how do we stack? How do we stack our paper? How do we prepare not just for hard times, but for a whole economic paradigm that puts us as Black people out of the equation?
Okay, now you're cooking with grease. Joining us are three powerful voices on faith, finance, and justice to help us get those answers. Dr. DeForest B. Soaries Jr., founder of D-Free, Anna Gifty, economist and founder of It's Afronomics, and Melissa Bradley, founder of 1863 Ventures.
Yay to the panel. Dr. Soaries, we're going to start off right here with you. You've long said freedom is the fruit of discipline. One of my favorite quotes. When everything feels unpredictable, how do we stay disciplined and grounded in purpose?
Well, first of all, thank you for what you're doing. The two of you are helping our community have something positive to focus on. And focus is the key. We can't be distracted. At a time like this, we need to understand that distraction is destruction. And so we're telling our people, first, get control of what you have. This is not a time to be spending money on frivolous things, on designer clothes. This is a time to hold on to what you have, spend wisely, and know where your money's going. And then only spend right now, we have to spend on what we need. When my sons were in college and I was trying to start saving for retirement and live a decent life and pay their tuition, I had to live on 51% of my income because the rest of that income went to take care of other responsibilities. So we've got to focus on needs right now. During this season, this is need season and not want season. And then we should be thinking about entrepreneurship. Those 319,000 Black women who were laid off from government, many of them have TSP programs, thrift savings programs. Many of our downsized Black executives have 401ks. And we need to pool our resources. When I'm not talking all Black people. I'm saying 4 or 5 people get together and buy a small business. 4 or 5 people get together and buy an apartment building. We've got to play offense and defense at the same time. I'm an advocate for protest. I'm an advocate for policy, but I'm also an advocate for doing what we can. Elijah Muhammad said, do for self. We will never be in a position in this country where we can afford not to do for ourselves. And then finally, we have to help. Many of us are doing well, and we will continue to do well. And those of us who are doing well are going to have to adopt and embrace and support our brothers and sisters that are not doing well. We're helping a woman right now who has 2 children, low-income job, Section 8. She got a brand new Section 8 apartment, but she couldn't afford the deposit on that apartment. And we had to help her with the deposit because the difference between that deposit and no deposit was the difference between beautiful, affordable housing and rat-infested tenant. And that's what we have to do. And that's our personal money, not government money, not grant money. I'm doing well, and I'm obligated to do all of those things that I can do to help a family or two that's not doing well.
Mm-hmm. Well, Anna, you've researched the double tax, and
Yes.
There's not a Black woman who doesn't know what that is.
Right.
How women of color pay higher costs just for existing in systems that are not designed for us.
Yeah.
How does this impact us in a time like this?
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me here. It's such an honor. And shout out to Brittany Packman-Cunningham for recommending me for this. There's so much to unpack here, right? So let me maybe define some terms first. So the double tax is the compounded cost of racism and sexism. But if you're familiar with misogynoir, I think this is really the quantification of the cost that Black women especially face when it comes to discrimination and prejudice, and how those costs extend not just to us in our communities, but to communities at large. And so what I'll say is that what we're seeing with the mass exit, I would argue, pushing out of Black women in the labor force is going to have a catastrophic effect on our economy. And that is because Black women play a very important role in our economy. Black women have the highest labor force participation rate, meaning that we tend to be the ones who are working or looking for a job at any given time as compared to other women who are also similarly in the economy. But in addition to that, Black mothers, 69% of them, tend to be the primary breadwinners of their household. So this means that there are economic ecosystems built around Black women, right? Black women essentially, a lot of times, are the economic or financial lifeblood of the Black community. And so if we're going down, that means that a lot of other individuals are also going to feel those effects as well. And so what this current moment illustrates is exactly what the double tax ultimately illustrates, which is if you see this house that's burning down 5 houses down and you don't address it, as we saw here with sort of the data around Black women's unemployment and eventually Black male unemployment spiking at the very beginning of the year, you'll start to see that once that's unaddressed, other parts of society will be impacted. So in this case,
We started off with Black women unemployment rising in the spring. Now there's a conversation about all women facing higher unemployment rates and mass exits from the labor force. And that's very much what happens when the double tax goes unaddressed.
It's Afronomics amazing. Follow tonight.
Thank you.
Y'all follow these panelists and get this information. Melissa, when people can't control corporate layoffs or inflation or all the things that are hitting us and happening to us, how can building a business or side hustle restore stability for our Black families?
Well, let me just echo the appreciation for being part of this conversation. And I've been watching all along. So this has been amazing, particularly this time. I want to say that as a serial entrepreneur and founder and also a venture capitalist, I think we want to acknowledge that entrepreneurship can be a pathway to wealth creation, but it's not a guaranteed pathway to wealth creation. And so I want to honor what my fellow panelists have suggested, but I want us to start businesses in a smart way. I have heard too many stories, particularly of Black women, who have gone on and thought it was the noble thing to leverage their home, to empty out their 401k to start a business. We have to understand the time value of money. If you've got money locked up somewhere, please leave it there. Do not risk the rumblings that are happening in the market and lose all that interest and value that has been accrued. I think the other piece of the panel is known as how do you come together? We talk about entrepreneurship. One of the fastest growing elements of entrepreneurship is entrepreneurship through acquisition, which we talked about in terms of buying businesses that are already up and running and that have some revenue that are already attached to it. So you're minimizing the downside risk of actually having to have all those startup costs and then not being able to pay yourself. So I think that there's a real opportunity to really think about how do I start a business? But I would say be careful. There are lots of schemes out there. We average that right now Black founders are spending anywhere between $2,000 to $4,000 a month on all these schemes and help or whatever. The biggest thing I say is ask a fellow founder, get advice, be humble, be open to learning, read things online. But let me be really clear. AI is not your best friend. That should not be your co-founder. Talk to other people who have started their businesses. I would also say that whether you start a business or not, as a finance major and a professor, we have to remember that diversification is the key to any successful portfolio. And we know that no matter what has happened historically, the stock market has always overperformed. And I recognize that many times in our community, we believe if we don't have a $10,000 block or a $1,000 block, we cannot get into this game. And I would say there are many platforms, I can name them, but there's several like Robinhood or Stash or others. I'm not advocating any of them, but there are ways that you can buy shares of stock. So whether you're in a low time or a high time, think about how do you set aside some discretionary income, $10 a month, $20 a month, and go buy some stocks. Get online, get involved in the game. And I would say don't go online again and searching for like, what stocks should I pick? I tell people to get stocks that they patronize. I've had my kids investing in stocks on these apps since they were 10. Invest in things that are of interest to you. Don't worry about if you pick something right or not. But I do think that at this point in time, we have to understand that the workforce is highly unstable, that we need to diversify our revenue sources. And that can be done through investing, where you have dividends or gains that are taking over time. That could be through a side hustle or a business or a partnership where there is revenue coming in. But I think the most important thing that I would say is just make sure that you're keeping track of how you're spending your money and the money coming in. I cannot tell you how many times I ask people, do they have a budget? And as business owners, tell me they have QuickBooks. That's not the same thing. That's an accounting software that is not a budget. And so I encourage people to get comfortable with putting down numbers and recognizing that one month they may be red and another month they may be green at the end of the day. But those dollar values do not reflect your value. They reflect the decisions that you made, and maybe you did a marketing campaign and it didn't work. Pivot and do something else. But I think the biggest thing for our community, and partly because of our history and where we are and all the various things in sports and culture, our value is not determined by the assets in our bank account. And so we have to be making sure that we're working within our means. We're doing things that make us feel comfortable, not stressed out. That's the last thing you need to do. And we're constantly thinking not about tomorrow, but about 3, 6, 9 years from now.
That's right.
Well, we have like 2 minutes left, and I wish we could talk about this all night. We can't talk about it all night tonight, but we want each of you to come back, please. Before we close, one sentence from each of you. What is one thing that any and everybody should do right now to begin to build financial stability in these unstable times? One sentence. First you, Dr. Soaries, and then we will go to Anna, and then we will go to Melissa.
Pay off your consumer debt as quickly as you can.
I agree with that. Join a union. So if your job has a union, join it. You're likely to get higher wages. That was 3 sentences. Sorry.
Build a budget that includes paying yourself so that you don't feel deprived, investing, and saving.
Love it.
Thank you all so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Stability isn't a privilege, it's a practice. And stacking isn't selfish, it's strategy. Zach, we need to stay in touch with those panelists for our own personal reasons, but I am so thankful that they were here with us tonight.
Baby, follow each and every single one of them on social media. Stay in touch with our panelists and find more resources on how to stack in the shutdown at the action and resources page on our website, stateoftheppl.com/TV.
Don't go anywhere. We've still got a word for your spirits coming up. But first, here are our friends from Black Voters Matter on how we can all show up to protect the vote ahead of a critical Supreme Court case.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Listen, family. Right now, the Supreme Court is actually deciding if Black voters in Louisiana can have fair representation. Here's the deal. Black folks are 1/3 of Louisiana's population, but only had one congressional district that they could actually elect someone they wanted. Now, the court said that wasn't right earlier and said Louisiana had to create a second Black district. And now some people are suing, saying that this is discrimination against white voters. Now, if the Supreme Court agrees to this, it will destroy Voting Rights Act and silence Black voices all across America. So we need you to take action today. There are 3 things you can do. Number 1, you can sign our petition at stateofthepeople.com. Number 2, join us on October the 15th at 9 a.m. at the Supreme Court. We're bringing buses from all across the South to say that our voices matter. And 3, you can donate to groups fighting on the front lines. Groups like Transformative Justice Coalition, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and Black Voters Matter Fund. Visit stateofthepeople.com, stateoftheppl.com, because our democracy can't wait. We can't wait. Got it? See y'all soon. We were built for this moment.
Monique, we're going to have to do this again real soon. You look amazing tonight, girl. You're giving the vibes of Nia Long. Everybody's been saying in the comments how good you look, and you do.
You know, Nia Long is, her birthday is 5 days after mine, same year. So
Scorpio? Baby, you mean to tell me they got 2 Scorpios tonight? It's coming up, our season. Shout out to the Libras.
yes, I wish these Libras would hurry up
Libras.
and get
We
out
love you,
of the
Libras.
way. But anyway, we're fighting back and building forward. We want you to remember the Signal Live isn't just here to tell you what's happening. We're here to make sure you're equipped, empowered, and ready to act. We want you to make sure you bookmark stateoftheppl.com/TV to catch us weekly and to get some good actions and resources to survive and defeat this moment.
Before we go, we're going to make sure you can encourage yourself until we meet again.
Here is the Bishop, Bishop Talbert Swan.
My frat brother.
Good evening, family. Deuteronomy 8:18 reminds us it is God who gives power to get wealth. Now that means our financial power is sacred. It's not just economic, it's spiritual. God didn't just bless us to enrich systems that oppress us, but to build institutions that sustain us. We spend trillions every year, and too often we can't find that same power circulating in our neighborhoods, our schools, or our churches. The same dollar that stays weeks in other communities leaves ours in just 6 hours. That's not just an economic crisis, that's a spiritual emergency. In Acts chapter 4, the early church had all things in common. Nobody lacked because everybody gave. That wasn't socialism, that was solidarity. They understood that prosperity flows through partnership. If we can organize our worship, we can organize our wallets. If we can march for justice, we can manage our money with purpose. If we can shout on Sunday, we can shift our deposits on Monday. Let's build our own banks. Let's support our own businesses. Let's invest in our own institutions. And let's teach our children that wealth without wisdom is wasted, but wisdom with wealth can change a world. Our ancestors built with less. Schools when they couldn't read, hospitals when they couldn't get treated, banks when they couldn't get loans. The time for begging is over. The time for building is now. Because when Black dollars matter, Black freedom becomes unstoppable. I'm Bishop Talbert Swan, and that was a word.